I don't know whether you're a religious person or not or anything like that, but traditionally, churches used to be considered a source of help for struggling marriages or family issues. I have mixed emotions on that, mixed feelings. I've seen good, I've seen bad. Do you have any comments on, is the church an asset? Is the church lack training? I've talked with people that said, we don't even know how to deal with these issues, and we'll learn. But can you comment on the church's role, perhaps?
What I think of when you bring that up are the rejected parents that I work with.
Yeah.
And how part of what they have to do is find faith beyond faith.
Yeah.
And trust.
Yeah.
That whatever this is about has some sort of meaning that they just can't see.
Yeah. You're talking about the parents that are going through the rejection.
Yes. And so that's where I go to when you mention the value of the church. It's what I see as a key component for their continued health and well-being.
Right.
And the ability to get through the pain of maybe temporarily or for a very long time losing a relationship with their children.
Yeah.
So in that regard, I think church is key.
Yeah. I've seen instances where the church will, first off, they say they won't get involved in family issues because they're like, we don't want to take sides. Well, you should be taking some side. Take God's side at the very least. You'll try to work things out, whatever. But then once a divorce takes place, often one spouse stays at the church, the other spouse leaves, whatever the case is, and the church tends to take a particular spouse's side. And if that person is an alienating parent, that alienation that is taking place with the children also gets brought up before the church leadership, and they tend to take sides too.
Yes.
Are you familiar?
I have seen that happen before, and that is a wound on top of a wound for the rejected parent.
Right.
Right. It didn't just happen with their children and their family. It happened in their community that they were rejected and marginalized for things that they didn't do.
Right.
So the trauma that comes from that for the rejected parent, the deep grief, loss, the betrayal, is an additional piece of work for them to have to deal with emotionally and psychologically as they move through the divorce and as they move through perhaps the court battles to come to try and get their children back with them.
And like you, I think the best thing for children is for both parents to be involved in their lives. Even in situations of alienation, I understand that you may have to remove an alienating parent for a time, but
that's not the goal, right?
Right.
For a time is I mean, a lot of people get stuck with that, right? How is what you're doing any different than what you're criticizing the alienating parent for doing, right? And the key to that is, well, we have an unwell parent who needs to get some help.
Right.
And the child needs to understand how this happened to them.
Yeah.
And then they enter back into relationship with the alienating parent, understanding how they may have been manipulated and understanding maybe the limits to that relationship. But the goal is not complete rejection of the alienating parent. Eventually our hope is to reintegrate them at the level possible, depending on the child's health and the alienating parent's ability to learn and grow.
And I'm glad that you started to answer as you did, because you probably phrased my question very succinctly to me. That when you have a parent that you said was unwell, I think that's the term that you used. And I think that at that point, going back to the church again, the church should have enough maturity and discernment to recognize that, you know what, we're watching this play out in front of our eyes. This is unwell behavior, and we need to fix it. We need to help to fix the family so that this does not continue on and become transgenerational. It does not affect the kids down the road. And that's where my criticisms have been with the church. And I'm a person who, graduated from seminary. I mentioned that I was a missionary in the Middle East. I've served as an assistant pastor for a time. But when I see the church itself, and the church, whether you want to talk about the people in the church or the ministers or whatever, it doesn't seem like they have a deep grasp of these dynamics. And to me, they are becoming ineffective and almost counterproductive at times. Because in an area where they should be able to help minister and bring a person to a place of wellness, they affirm the unwellness.
Right, and so you bring up two important points. One, that an alienating parent who is exhibiting characteristics of a personality disorder. Mm-hmm. They are extremely charismatic. They mm-hmm. are extremely convincing. Mm-hmm. Their emotional delivery of this story of abuse and abandonment is so convincing that mm-hmm. people will jump on board mm-hmm. quickly without thinking about mm-hmm. it, even mm-hmm. if they knew the other parent to be right. pretty reasonable and healthy.
Right.
That is one of the things that even as a professional I deal with, because mm-hmm. they have corrupted maybe the religious establishment, mm-hmm. but they've also gone in and done the same thing at the school. Mm-hmm. So that the teacher has enough information that's been strategically delivered that yeah. the other parent is horrible and abusive, that they interact with that parent differently. And dad or mom comes to yeah. participate, they've already got a view. School administrators already have a view. Yeah. And it's not the correct view. It's the view of the alienating parent. CPS is vulnerable to it.
Yes.
Systems are vulnerable to these people.
Yeah.
And so the other point that you bring up is that the only people who don't need this education, that need this education, are not lawyers and mental health providers, but they are systems, schools,
yeah.
doctors' offices,
yeah.
Churches,
mm-hmm.
CPS.
Mm-hmm.
All need this education.
So last year up in Dallas, there was a parental alienation awareness seminar. I'm not sure if you were familiar with it, but was at Collin College. A friend of mine, Wendy Perry, put it on. It was really, really great. I think there were probably 300 to 400 people there from the legal profession, counselors, police department. Unfortunately, I don't know of any legislators that were there, nor of any ministers who were there. The people that could really look at some of these things and maybe run with it.
Yes.
Especially ministers, a pastor, a pastoral staff. If there were a couple of individuals, if there was an individual on staff that was trained in this, or we'll say if 4 or 5 churches got together and say, we're going to train one person on this, and that person will spend his time educating us. There's so many ways we could address this issue other than through the legal system.
Yes.
That we could bring wellness and health.
Freudian slip.
The wellness is right now, but yeah. No, the wellness and the health back to the parent-child relationship.
Yes.